to Craftycast.com. In this, the first episode of our podcast, we're going to look at an introduction to lace making, and I'm going to show you some of the equipment that's used when making lace. Hopefully this will be interesting to people who either want to learn how to make lace themselves or want to know more about how people made lace in the past. There are lots of different ways to make lace. You can knit it, or crochet it, or stitch it. But today we're going to be talking about what's known as bobbin or pillow lace. Pillow lace is, as the name indicates, made on a pillow. Traditionally, pillows looked something like this. Here we have a cotton bag stuffed hard with straw with a simple cotton cover over the top. This is actually a Honiton lace making pillow. Just come back a bit so you can see it. And it would be used on the lap. The traditional lace making pillows for Midland lace were more of a bolster shape. They were slightly longer than this. Nowadays, Midlands lace makers tend to use pillows that look more like this, which is a dome. It has a flat wooden base. Again, it is covered in a material and stuffed tight with straw and has a cotton cover over the top. The cotton cover comes off so it can be washed. When you're making lace, you really need to keep things very clean. If you are learning to make lace, you may well have a pillow that's more like this. This is polystyrene, and this is the sort of pillow that comes in the very popular lace making kits that you can buy. All the pillow needs to be able to do is hold the pins that are used for lace making upright. So it has to be a good firm construction. Another major component of bobbin lace making is bobbins. These are used to keep the tension of the thread consistent whilst you're actually making the lace. This is the sort of bobbin that's used for making Honiton lace. You can see it's quite small. It has a pointed base and it's made of a very, very smooth wood. The thread is wound around the top here. Let me now compare the Honiton lace bobbin to a Midlands lace bobbin. Now you can see obviously the Midlands lace bobbin is much longer and it features this on the end. This is known as a spangle, and it's just a loop of wire with some glass beads on it. And the reason it has this is the thread that's used for making Midlands lace is much thicker and heavier than the Honiton thread, and therefore it needs a little bit more weight to keep the tension taut. This particular one is made out of wood, and you can get lots of different types made up turned wood. This one is two-tone, and here we have a more plain boxwood one. As well as wood, you can buy bobbins that are made out of plastic. These work just as well and tend to be a lot cheaper than wooden ones. Some bobbins are a lot more ornate. This particular one has writing that's actually been burnt into the stem of the bobbin. It says Cooper and Newton Museum, only Buckinghamshire. That's a town that's particularly associated with lace making. You can also find these with people's names and a date, or maybe to commemorate an event such as a coronation. It was also a popular tradition in Victorian times that if a young man wished to court a lace maker, he may make or buy her a bobbin, perhaps with her name, or a declaration of love. The spangles can also be very interesting. Some, such as this one, are quite simply glass beads. On some of my own bobbins, I've added little trinkets. The little elephant is actually a 1950s cracker present. This one has a little pewter ballerina. I've got 3 or 4 of these. And this one has a little silver tragedy mask. It doesn't really matter what you hang on the spangle as long as it makes the bobbin have a little bit more weight. Let's look at some of the other pieces of equipment that are used when making lace. One of the most important and useful are pins. This is my pin cushion. Now the main pins that we use when making lace look like this. I can hold it up, you can see it's pretty small. This is a brass pin, and the reason that lace makers use brass pins is because they don't rust. There are a few other types of pins on my pin cushion here. The very long pins, I use one of these pushed right through the pin cushion to hold it down onto the pillow while I'm working, which is very easy because I can just move it around as I work. I also have some of these glass-headed pins. These are more traditional sewing pins, and I just use these sometimes to help you mark out groups of bobbins and keep an eye on where things are. And in days gone by, people did just the same thing. They used these to measure their progress. You put a pin in at the beginning of the day when you started work, and then you could easily see how much you'd done during the day's work. You'll also need a pair of scissors. These are my lace making scissors, which are rather tiny, but they do need to be very sharp so that you can cut very close to the thread. If you make Honiton lace, it's very useful to have a pair of blunt scissors because it helps you tying a knot in the Honiton threads. Later on, when I do a podcast about Honiton lace making, you'll see what I mean. The lace maker works by following a pattern of little dots that's known as a pricking. To make a pricking, the lace maker takes a copy of the design. In days gone by, this would have been lent to them by their lace dealer, or nowadays we just photocopy it out of a book. This is too flimsy to just use a piece of paper like this. It wouldn't last very long. Nowadays, we can use parchment card like this that you can buy from lace making dealers. Before people use this sort of thing, they would use actual parchment, which is obviously a bit expensive to use nowadays. A cheap alternative is cereal box cardboard, and I've actually stuck the photocopy of the design directly onto that, and I can use that perfectly well. That will last for quite a lot of uses. To make a pricking, you take your photocopy or drawn design, lay it on a piece of this parchment card, so the two are together, and then pin them down firmly at each corner. I actually pin mine on the back of my polystyrene pillow. You can pin it on the top of your pillow or to a cork tile, something that's nice and safe and will protect your work surface. The tool that's used to make the pricking is rather unimaginatively called a pricker. I've got two different ones here. This one's quite short and this is a longer, more ornate turned version. And all it is really is a piece of wood with a very sharp point in the end. You can see that there. Once you have your design and its piece of parchment firmly pinned down, you simply go around the design and poke the little pricker where every little dot is on the design, so that when you finish and you remove the photocopy part, you can see underneath, I hope, that the parchment now is full of lots of little holes. You can probably see it better on the back. You can see it a lot better on the back. And all these little holes are where you'll be putting the pins when you're making your lace. Sometimes you'll find instructions to how to make the lace. Here we have the pricking that you actually can trace, and over here it explains to you the order in which you work the lace and the stitches that you use. And we use a couple of pieces of cotton to cover up areas of the pricking that we're not actually using at this moment, to stop the thread rubbing on it. We can also cover the pillow in it to keep the pillow extra clean. So most lace makers will have a few of these, and we can always put them in the washing machine. We do need to keep them nice and clean, and remember, as I said before, when you're making lace, keeping everything clean is very, very important. Traditionally, these cloths are a dark colour, green or a dark blue. And the reason they're a dark colour is simply because the white threads show up better on them, and most lace is still made in white thread. The last couple of tools I'll show you are not essential, but are quite useful. If you make Honiton lace, then you may well want one of these. This is a pin lifter, and it's like a little trowel shape, and it's simply used to flick underneath a pin and pull it out of the pricking in the pillow. With Honiton lace, you quite often have to push pins down deep into the pillow, and it is quite fiddly picking them out again, especially if you haven't got very long fingernails. And the end of this device, if I can get it near enough to the camera so you can see, it's got a little dip in the end. It's a little bit hard to see on a webcam. Little dent in the end, and that's used for pushing the pins down in the first place. So this is pretty handy, saves your fingernails and makes life a little bit easier. This is another little useful device. All it is really is a needle that's been inserted into a turned wooden handle, and you can't really see on the webcam, but this is in fact the eye of the needle. And this is pretty useful. It's almost essential for Honiton lace making, but it is very handy if you make Midlands lace too. And if you watch some of the later podcasts where I'm actually making lace, you'll see that this gets used for quite a few different little bits and pieces. Thank you for watching this podcast from Craftycast.com. I'll put some additional information up on the website for you, and I hope to have another podcast out very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.